When you think of shonen anime, who are the first characters that usually come to mind? You might first say Goku, Luffy, Naruto, maybe Jesse Pinkman, just to name a few. And what do these guys all have in common? They definitely didn't get past Algebra 1, if you get what I mean. And that's not a diss towards them whatsoever, it's one of the reasons why we love them as protagonists. I'm literally wearing Super Saiyan underwear right now. That's also not to say that they never show moments of genius in battle or moments of seriousness where they have some sort of character development. But throughout their respective stories, their nature and morals don't really change. This, however, isn't the case for the subject of today's video. But you already knew that from reading the title. No, strap onto your gamer chairs because today we will be examining a man of mystery, a man of many faces, a man who loves donuts. So, just to give context, because I will be speaking primarily on the anime and not the manga since they share quite a bit of differences, Trigun is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Yasuhiro Naito and serialized in Tokuma Shoten's Shounen Captain, where it ran from 1995 to 1997 until it was cancelled due to the magazine being discontinued. The manga was then adapted into an anime television series by Madhouse in 1998, a year for anime that was equivalent to finding extra fries in the bottom of your bag. God, it was so beautiful. Trigun follows the misadventures of goofball gunslinger Vash the Stampede on the planet Gunsmoke, as he is followed by two insurance workers, Meryl Strife and Millie Thompson, who intend to minimize the damage caused by his appearance from town to town. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention he has a $60 billion double-dollar bounty on his head and is frequently tracked down by bounty hunters who want the nice, hefty reward. Also, while I know it is a crime to not go into detail about Nicholas D. Wolfwood and how important he is in the series, I will only be bringing him up occasionally for the sake of the video. Thank you, and please forgive me. Now I know what you're thinking, but Dylan, how can Vash be the funny man protagonist if he's wanted for being a ruthless killer? Well, a major point that the series makes right from the start is everyone's perception of Vash the Stampede. The opening credits purposely try to trick the audience into believing the hype surrounding him by playing this badass guitar solo and showing these super hardcore shots of him walking the desert alone and doing some pretty sweet gunplay. Then the first scene of episode 1 is Vash sitting in a saloon right before the whole building gets destroyed by a bounty hunter and his goons, and right as Vash draws his .45 long Colt, it cuts straight into the title card. And then the next scene we see Vash in, he's frantically jumping around and crab walking to dodge bullets. You see, Trigun is a show full of twos, and no, not you two, but many things come in pairs. Gunsmoke's currency is in double dollars. There are two suns, both literally and figuratively, but I'll get more into that later. And there are also two sides to every major character in the show. And for Vash, that's in more ways than one. In the very early parts of the series, Vash tries his hardest to not reveal himself to the public, and a big part of that comes in him acting like a dum-dum. Now, obviously he is naturally a charismatic and zany guy, but quite a bit of it is Vash not wanting to seem like a threat to anybody. Despite what the myth surrounding him says, he is never looking for trouble. Trouble always seems to find him nonetheless, and it is in his nature to help those that are in danger. The twist is that Vash is a huge pacifist who will not kill at all costs. Yes, you heard me correctly. The lonely wandering space cowboy hates even the sight of blood. In fact, the first couple episodes of Trigun don't even have Vash actually using his gun. And when he does later on in the series, his astounding level of marksmanship allows him to merely disarm his enemies instead of serving out bullet wounds. I mean, he goes to such great lengths to keep everyone alive that in episode 8, when he accidentally shoots a henchman that took him by surprise, he has a mini panic attack and bandages him up so he doesn't die. And what's really fascinating is, Vash's methods work. He survives every encounter with just his skill, intuition, and luck alone. That is, until we get to episode 12. and the occasionally tense but fun lighthearted tone the series kept up until this point stops on a dime and is replaced with dread. Lots and lots of dread. Now, before episode 12, Vash has always had control of every wild predicament he's been in. For the most part. It seemed like no matter how nuts and hopeless the circumstances were, he could always find a way to come out on top without anybody dying under his protection. Except that sense of security was all a facade, because now we have wannabe Seto Kaiba over here just ruining everyone's fun with his stupid hair and his stupid coat. And his stupid hair. Just give me a moment. I gotta recollect myself. Okay, if I haven't made it abundantly clear by now, I hate Legato Blue Summers, but I'm using the word hate in the most positive connotation possible. The minute we meet Legato, he immediately gives Vash the worst case of PTSD I've ever seen on television. His theme song perfectly encapsulates his philosophy and personality by being devoid of any life or sense of rhythm. Just cold and calculated. Almost like static. He is the physical embodiment of nihilism, and his only goal is to make Vash's life a living hell. All Legato cares about besides eliminating the entire population of Planet Gunsmoke is to get Vash to break his moral code and take someone's life, and it makes him the perfect foil. So to keep a long story short about episode 12, Legato pits Vash against a psychopathic murderer named Monev the Gale, who looks like Bane with an arm cannon, and Vash almost kills him after he massacres most of the town, but stops himself at the last second as he remembers the teachings of the mother figure in his life that he loved. And right before the episode ends, we see a man broken inside.
My name is Vash the Stampede. I am a hunter of peace, chasing the mayfly known as love.
These are the words that Vash lives by, almost to a fault. Vash's way of life always leaves a lasting impression on the people he crosses paths with, and it leads to positive development for them. But as shown in the episode previously mentioned, his hyperfixation on saving every life due to his pacifistic nature can unintentionally do more harm than good. And this is where episode 17 introduces two characters that are essential in understanding the enigma that is Vash the Stampede. Rhymesayers and Knives Millions. If you caught on to my transition to this section of the video, Rem is Vash's surrogate mother who instills in him the peaceful principles that he is so devoted to. She was the only person that really took care of Vash in his early years, since he really didn't have a mother or a father. Why, you may ask? Well, through this flashback episode, we learned that Vash is not a human, but rather an interdimensional being that was created from a plant, these man-made sources of power and energy. Vash was supposed to lead the human race, who left Earth for an undisclosed reason, to the future. He was supposed to do this with his brother Knives. And this is what we call in the business a callback. However, Knives is quite the little stinker and doesn't take any of Rem's teachings to heart, instead choosing to think logically and not emotionally. Knives is a facts don't care about your feelings kind of guy, except it's to justify his murderous intentions and not just a debate over whether or not we should put a parental advisory sticker on Charles Entertainment cheese. There are clear similarities between Knives and Legato in their view on human life, but it's precisely just that, human life. Knives believes only his life and Vash's are worth anything, and humans are just inferior to both of them. They're merely pests to him. This insect analogy also shines through when Vash and Knives get into a heated altercation over whether or not he should have killed a spider to save a butterfly.
That was the easiest way to stop him. You wanted to save the butterfly, right?
I didn't want to kill the spider, I wanted to save them both.
What are you talking about? Unless the spider caught the butterfly, it would die of starvation anyway. You can't save both, don't you know that?
It's not right to make that choice so easily. Both of them are living creatures, Knives, so you should...
But I'm not wrong about this, Rem. If you just keep saving the butterflies, the spiders will die.
Yes, but...
Wanting to save both is just a naive contradiction.
This argument perfectly encapsulates the polar opposition between Vash and Knives. Due to Rem's influence, Vash sees that every life matters and it is no one's place to decide who lives or who dies. Knives, on the other hand, thinks it's illogical and pointless to waste so much time and energy into being a peacekeeper and believes it's best to just cut out the middleman entirely. And to Knives, the middleman is anyone who he sees as weak compared to him. It's why he ultimately kills everyone on the spaceship except for Vash and almost wipes out the entire human race if it weren't for Rem's final act of changing the other ship's coordinates to Planet Gunsmoke before her death. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because Vash's internal struggle is essential in understanding him. If you pay attention to little details or short moments that occur even from the beginning of the series, you'll see how much emotional baggage he carries with him. Take episode 3, where Vash is getting drunk with the town gunsmith Frank Marlin. Millie comments on how happy they must be since they seem to be having a good time, but Meryl interjects and says,
I don't think so. People only drown themselves in alcohol when they have something they want to forget. It's an escape from reality.
As a viewer, you first assume that she's mainly talking about Frank, since we learn later on that his wife and child were killed by outlaws that used his handcrafted weapons. But rewatching it after knowing the truth of Vash's story sheds a whole new light on the line itself. Or take, for example, episode 9, where Wolfwood sees Vash smiling at him after he helped out a poor mother and her kids. Wolfwood takes notice of the smile and tells him,
Well, I'll be. I'm actually surprised that you can smile like that.
Huh? What do you mean?
You had me kind of worried. I noticed that you always smile and seem really friendly, but the way you smiled was so empty it hurt to watch you. You're hurting like crazy on the inside, yet you grin and bear it.
Wolfwood then dismisses his own comment and plays it off as a way for him to get Vash to buy his confessional, but that's the show doing a bit of misdirection to not let you dwell on what he's saying for too long. Wolfwood's point still stands, however, and you know he's right by just looking at Vash's face when he says it. While these examples are more direct, the most subtle use of foreshadowing comes in the beginning of episode 4, when Vash stops in a little town during a sandstorm. The driver who gave him a ride tells him that he's still 500 yards away from the town, but Vash says he's The driver who gave him a ride tells him that he's still 500 yards away. Yousef, when you edit this, I'm so sorry. The driver who gave him a ride tells him that he's still 500 yards away from the town, but Vash says he prefers to walk the rest of the trail. Then the camera pans to show an immense graveyard that stretches across the land. We never get any explanation of this in the episode, but we get another scene like this one in the form of a flashback, where Vash is again visiting a cemetery in episode 26. And then it hits you. Vash is more than a century old. From what we know, he's immortal. He has formed close relationships that we aren't even aware of because of how long he's been around, and he has had to see everyone around him grow old and die, while he stays the same age. Remember when I mentioned how Vash's mantra is love and peace? Well, the cruel irony about that is, Vash has never fully achieved love and peace, only for fleeting moments or short periods of time. He is always looking over his shoulder, running away from his past, refusing to confront what has been plaguing him his whole life. Knives. Not just Knives himself, but rather what he represents. Knives' philosophy, while truly wicked, is a constant reminder to Vash that he can't save everybody, no matter how hard he tries. And there is no greater proof of this than the last 3 episodes of the entire series, where at his lowest point, when he is forced to abandon his own ideals, Vash has a spiritual awakening that frees him from the burden he has put upon himself. Episode 24 is arguably the hardest episode to stomach. The first scene with Vash is just him sitting on a bench and crying. Yeah, I wasn't kidding. Vash only knows pain. Name a character that went through more pain than him. I'll wait. It's not over either, because now Legato is back and he's bringing cake to this pity party. He kidnaps Meryl and Millie and gives Vash a choice. Kill him and break his moral code, or don't pull the trigger and let them die. Vash, with Rem's words running through his mind, commits the one sin he promised her he'd never do. And to really hammer home the agony of it all, we get Knives maniacally laughing before the episode cuts to the end credits. Wow, thanks bro, you shouldn't have. Episode 25 then picks up a day after the last, and we have Vash screaming in his hotel room like he's Kendrick Lamar and just sulking in silence. It seems that Vash really has lost his way and won't recover until Meryl reminds him of what his purpose is and how he has to go about it.
And everyone deserves a future.
The change in Vash's ideology isn't that you have to be as malicious as the evil you're responding to, but you do have to make certain sacrifices in order to make a wrong thing right. So in the final episode of the series, he does exactly that. Vash fulfills Rem's last wish to take care of Knives and put an end to his reign of terror. He defeats him with the help of Wolfwood's cross-shaped Punisher, symbolizing Vash repenting for his past sins and achieving salvation within himself. Vash doesn't kill Knives though, choosing to only put his body out of commission and save whatever humanity is left in him. As he heads back to town with Knives on his back, he leaves his red coat behind and says,
Rem, I will continue to believe in you, but from now on, I'll look to my own words for guidance.
By confronting his past and letting go, Vash has finally found love and peace. If there's one of Rem's teachings that rings true from beginning to end, it's that our mistakes don't define us. It's what we do after those mistakes that matters. That is Trigun's most important message. And I think that just like Vash was able to keep his vision clear, we can too. All we need is a little bit of love and peace.